part of a delegation apparently from Rwanda, but we all live here in South Africa, and it pains me to speak about the country that I was never born in a country that does not want me. And I know many of you have heard beautiful stories about Rwanda and how amazing it is. But as somebody who lives in the refugee community outside Rwanda, that place is not a home. Even for our families that we left there, even of the people who walked down and away from the genocide, those bodies along the ways have never been able to find peace. And I specifically wanted to pose a question to Mikhail. As somebody who comes from a country that you want to fight for, but is inaccessible, a home that you cannot go to, and how you can inspire us. We come from refugee communities that have been intentionally destabilized by the current government. They send people into our homes, into our marriages, into our families, to make sure that we're unable to build anything, anywhere in the world. Even now, speaking in front of you, I'm terrified, I'm shaking. And I want to know what it is that you're doing as a community of Eritreans in the diaspora, how you're able to make sure that your voice is heard, because we are silenced here.
Right.
We are silenced here.
Thank you.
And I would like some encouragement.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. And I want to speak also to our sisters from Rwanda or the other refugee communities living here, that you could be silenced here, but in this room where African women sit, you are not silenced. Your voices matter, your agency matters, your pain matters, and we are listening. And many times it doesn't look like we can act or do anything immediately, because sometimes it's not possible. I want to just mention to our sisters that we can never understand your pain because you're going through your pain. But I need you to know that in our silence, when we cry for you, it's out of frustration and helplessness. All our sisters in this situation, that when we cry for you, it's out of frustrations and helplessness, but it is never out of losing hope, because we will never lose hope. So here you can stand with us. Let's cry together here. Let us speak together here. Let us embrace together here. It is difficult out there, we know. It is tougher, we know. You cannot talk there, we know. But we came here so we can embrace you and tell you African women are standing with you. It might not look like it, but we have you in our hearts. We have you in our plans. It doesn't look like there's action. We know there are very many challenges, but we have you. That's why we are here with you. Never feel that you're alone. May I ask the third comment as you reflect on this?
Hello. Okay. I am.
Thank you. Number 3.
Hello. I am Masire Brahima Lavali. I am a blind person from Sierra Leone as a delegate. I am in this room this afternoon to actually talk to Pan-African women in respect to women living with disability. I want to applaud my sister on the panel for making more disability more inclusive and lifting it up high. And we all know when it comes to disability issues, especially women, discrimination itself is a whole problem we have. And even as we gather here, we still suffer discriminations. And that is why I am saying, everybody in this room is a potential disabled person.
Yes.
We have laws, we have the UN conventions. Every year we go to UNCRPD in New York and we talk about disability issues. But yes, see, there are challenges. Because when you look at what women are doing, when it comes to advocacy, especially for women with disability, it's only OPDs, organizations of persons with disability, that advocate for themselves. You hardly see able women in their organization being inclusive by employing women with disability. Rather, what they do or ask, what can she do? Is she qualified? Can she do A, B, and C? So as Pan-African women, we need to change her mentality. We need to change that stereotyping. We need to change the ego we have about disability. Because all they have here know about us is these people are stubborn. But you need to try us. Be very inclusive. Yes. I believe we are not only gathering here to say we are Pan-African women and we work in solidarity. Working in solidarity means we work together, leaving no one behind, work in line with the SDGs, which says gender equality. And gender equality means you should not leave no one behind. And we are talking of SDGs. So today I want to say a very big thank you to our coordinator and AFWID in general, who gave the opportunity for some of us to be here. But as women in general, when we go back to our country, let us know that every human being is a potential disabled person. If you are an activist, you are an advocate, you are a gender specialist, make sure you include women with disability. Because we are talking of suffering, we are talking of vulnerability. Who is more vulnerable than a woman with disability? We're talking of gender-based violence. Who suffered it the most? Women with disability do suffer double discrimination. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my sister. I need you to know, my sister, that AFWID is leading the way by how AFWID mobilizes. That AFWID would not happen if women with disabilities are not represented. That AFWID does not stop if a woman has to be pushed on a wheelchair and come with a minder. That AFWID does not stop if a woman is visually impaired and has to have somebody walk with her. AFWID goes the stretch and says, come with the minder. Come with the one who's walking with you. Be with the person who is with you. I thank you, my sister. Many disabilities are visible, but more are invisible. AFWID looks into all that and brings all that in. And for that, we appreciate. Thank you for the passionate call. It's all loud and clear. We hear you. Yes. I'll take one and the last one there before we open the panel. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I will speak Arabic.
Yes.
منى شعبان من مصر. تحديدا في مصر في مكان اسمه أسوان وهو جنوب مصر. اولا انا بشكر السيده السودانيه جدا لان انا كنت قايمه بالفعل اتكلم في الجزئيه دي لان احنا في اسوان اكتر ناس حاسين باخواتنا واشقائنا السودانيات. فاحنا اسفين لو ما اتذكرش اسم السودان من اول الجلسات. انا هتكلم في نقطتين. اول حاجه اللاجئات الافريقيات وتاني حاجه هتكلم في المدافعات الحقوقيات. بالنسبه للاجئين واللاجئات هم مش بس بيتعرضوا في بلادهم للاضطهاد، لا ده اللي هم بيعانوه خلال الفتره اللي بينتقلوا فيها من بلادهم للمكان امن ليهم. بيتعرضوا لمآسي حرفيا. فالمفروض ان احنا وانا لما جيت النهارده واول مره احضر اجتماع كبير زي كده احنا مش قليلين، احنا محتاجين ان احنا نتحد ويكون عندنا صوت واحد يتكلم عننا. لما يكون في حاجة في السودان ألاقي كل أفريقيا بتناهض وكل الأماكن موجودة بتتكلم وبتسمع صوتنا خارج أفريقيا وداخل أفريقيا. ولما يكون في حاجة في موزمبيق أو في أي دولة أفريقيا لازم كل الدول تدعم وكل المنظمات الحقوقية اللي موجودة في أفريقيا تدعم بكل قوة. عشان كده لازم يكون في تواصل دائم بينا عشان نقدر ندعم ونوصل. كل ما كان في دعم وحشد للقضايا دي كل ما هيبقى ليها حلول سريعة داخل وخارج البلاد، لأنهم بيتعرضوا للبلاد اللي هم بيروحوها برضو لاضطهاد من الحكومات وقوانين بتصدر فجأة. ده بالنسبة للاجئين. بالنسبة للمدافعات الحقوقية أنا واحدة لسه في بداية مشواري في النسوية وفي الكلام عن التثقيف الجنسي وحقوق الصحة الإنجابية والجنسية. وللأسف احنا برضو بنتعرض لكمية من الإهانات والخوف والرعب ان احنا ممكن نتسجن او ان احنا ممكن نتوصم او ان اهلنا يتعرضوا لسجن او ضغط عشان نبطل نتكلم في المواضيع اللي زي دي. برضو انا شايفة ان والحل الامثل ان دايما يكون في حشد. أنا واحدة مصرية ممكن بمجرد إن أنا أتواصل مع أي منظمة يبتدي الموضوع يسمع في كل حتة ونبتدي نتكلم فيه بشكل عالمي، وكل اللي يقدر يعمل حملات مناصرة، حملات مشاركة، وحملات دعم، كل ده هيفرق. الحكومات فعلا بتخاف من الضغط والحشد. شكرا وأسفة لو طولت عليك.
Thank you very much. And one of the things that I want to also bring out is that when AFWID brings women together, they get stressed and do not sleep because they are looking for how they can get women from Sudan when it's burning, get women from DRC, get women from Somalia. And so they try their best to just try and get the women. And we will keep trying. Thank you so much for that. I want one last from the lady at the back. You've been waiting for a long time.
Hello.
Please go ahead.
I'm called Yvonne Muma from Cameroon. I'm the way forward. Our children go and die in the ocean because the borders of Africa are tighter than those of Mexico, the Mexico before. We should advocate for a borderless Africa so that our children go across this continent to trade and to gain education. A united and stronger Africa is the future of the world. I trust and believe that this Pan-Africanist movement, with the voices of women pulled together, will bring down all the barriers of neocolonialism. Thank you.
Thank you, my sister. Thank you. We are this year experiencing a bit of the borderless Africa for the countries that came into South Africa without necessarily having a visa. So we are beginning to see the change is small, but the change is coming. Okay, Mama, I'll take one more from Mama there. Yes. Yes, and then I'll go back to the panel to just give me their feedback. Let me. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Very much. It's on the way forward.
Yes.
We've said so many things.
Yes.
And I see them all in something that we should use as the way forward.
Yes.
And that is the Women, Peace and Security Agenda, 1325, which is also linked to the Young Women's Resolution, 2250.
Right.
And if we want to make sure that each country, as you're talking, borderless Africa, then let's not use the AU broad framework for monitoring. Let's use the AU CRF, right, for monitoring and holding our government accountable.
So 1325 combined with UNSCR 1325 combined with
2250,
2250
for young people.
So for us to action and move forward, combine 1325 and 2250
and localize it.
Thank you, my sister. What do you want to quickly say?
Okay, thank you. I speak in French. Okay. Je voulais juste apporter une précision parce qu'au début vous aviez posé la question aux panélistes. Si depuis Beijing, il y avait eu de l'évolution, est-ce que 30 ans plus tard, vous serez encore là? Je voulais juste rappeler qu'il y a eu de l'évolution. Le simple fait que nous soyons ici prouve qu'il y a eu de l'évolution. Et si vous me le permettez rapidement, en matière de l'éducation, les filles ont accès à l'éducation. Dans certains pays, l'État a mis en place des politiques afin de scolariser les jeunes filles. C'est déjà une avancée forte. En termes de santé, de l'accès aux soins, nous parlons pour les femmes du droit à l'avortement. Il y a certains pays où nous avons dépénalisé l'avortement. C'est déjà une avancée forte. Je veux juste qu'en partant d'ici, qu'on ne se dise pas qu'on n'a pas avancé depuis Beijing. Nous avons des pays qui ont adopté des lois pour éradiquer les violences à l'égard des femmes. Il y a des pays qui ont reconnu la violence conjugale comme un droit, comme étant une violence à l'égard des femmes. Ça veut dire que même si vous êtes marié légalement et qu'on vous viole, vous pouvez porter plainte. C'est une avancée, c'est des choses qui n'existaient pas il y a quelques années. Je voudrais juste nous rappeler.
I can't do two on this side, but thank you very much. May I now come back, allow me to come back to the panel. You do realize we are 1,000 women. And you do realize we cannot have the microphone all 1,000 of us. So we've tried to have maybe panelists. I start with you, Dar. Before you give me your 2 points of how we move forward, so that we can make Beijing plus 30 make sense. Give me your thoughts from what you've gathered from the floor, and then give me your 2 points.
Ok, merci beaucoup. En ce qui concerne le Soudan, comme vous aviez dit tout à l'heure, on s'est levé pour pouvoir soutenir le Soudan et puis d'autres pays. Et pour ma part, personnellement, je fais un effort de pouvoir connaître tous les pays du continent. Et la première des choses que je peux pouvoir faire personnellement, c'est la prière pour tous ces pays-là. Et dans ma prière, je me mets à citer tous ces pays de 1 jusqu'à 55. Et on vous soutient, même si peut-être on n'a pas pu parler du Soudan, de la RDC et d'autres régions d'Afrique, on vous soutient en silence. Peut-être on ne le dit pas à haute voix, mais ce qui est sûr, on vous porte dans nos prières. C'est d'abord la première des choses. Et en ce qui concerne les autres interventions, comme ma sœur du Cameroun l'a dit, certes, il y a des avancées. Ça, c'est à féliciter. Et certaines régions d'Afrique diffèrent des autres par rapport aux avancées de Beijing. Mais il y a encore des efforts à effectuer. En ce qui concerne l'éducation, il y a vraiment encore des efforts à effectuer. On peut avoir le nombre élevé, mais la qualité de l'éducation qu'on donne dans les écoles aux enfants ou encore dans les universités doit encore s'améliorer. Et pour améliorer cela, il faudrait encore l'investissement. Et en ce qui concerne l'investissement, certes, c'est une question d'argent, mais c'est surtout aussi une question de volonté. La volonté non seulement de nos gouverneurs, mais aussi de nous autres qui sommes gouvernés. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you very much. And just to reaffirm, like my colleague Dan have said, we stand in solidarity with all women across the world. Regardless, and we were here to support you, and we apologize for not bringing up these key issues that affect women from Sudan, women from Congo, women from Egypt, and across all the world. Just to respond quickly to my sister from Cameroon, from Sierra Leone. When I was here, I did a little research. I went to a few people, I asked them, do you have a disability law in your country? And they're like, I'm not sure, but I think there is. Then I asked an interesting lady from Malawi. She's a person with a disability, Jovita. I asked her, do you have a disability law in your country? I said, yes, we have. This is just to tell you that we as women, there is a disconnect. And as Africans, we are continuously seeing disability as a condition and not a social inclusion issue. In the context of Africa, I must go to the doctor to get healed if I have a disability. I'm recommended to prayer houses, to a point I don't even want to go to church, because it feels like, as a Christian, the core essence of me being a Christian is to have faith and to believe in God, but not to get healing. But now it looks like the core reason I have to go to church is to get healed. On the aspect of human rights, we've gotten to an extent, almost all the countries in Africa now have a disability law, and we also have the AU protocol on the rights of people with disabilities, which is currently just adopted by South Africa and one other country, just 2 countries out of the 55 countries. But when it comes to the social aspect of disability, we are still seeing disability as a people, as a condition, and not a social inclusion project that we must put into all our social work. And I want to emphasize that there's a thin line between inclusion and tokenism. Most times as civil society workers, we are quick to tokenize people with disabilities. Representation alone is not enough. Because I am here as a person with a disability does not speak to every other person with a disability. It is just a representation. It is not a participation.
Yeah.
And until we are able to bring people with disabilities from all their diversities and give them the reasonable accommodation they need to participate, we are just tokenizing people with disabilities and promoting ableism. I am not a blind person. I do not relate with the issues. I can understand a fragment of it, but I do not relate the challenges a blind person faces. In Africa, we are even yet to understand that schizophrenic is a disability. Yeah. That we have mental disabilities, psychosocial disabilities, and intellectual disabilities. We are just seeing disability to be the physical aspect of disability, and this is giving us a way back. Right. Globally, I would like to share that the SDGs, sadly, do not have anything for people with disabilities. Regardless that the bedrock of the SDGs is on the promise of leaving no one behind. But I tell you, from poverty down to sustainable cities and the promise of good health, people with disabilities were not carried along. As until last year, until 2023, when we had the halfway report, it shows that the indicators harvested were not enough to speak to disability inclusion. So this is a call to everyone here who is programming for social inclusion, who is programming for development in Africa. People with disabilities have to come to the table. And it is not just enough to bring those with physical disabilities to the table. We have those with autism, those with intellectual disabilities, those with psychosocial disabilities, and disability is an evolving issue. Because we understand it today does not mean it is not allowed to change tomorrow. Changes will constantly come when it comes to disability inclusion, so we must be ready to move with this change. Now, the way forward for me is seeing that we as Africa are able to accept that disability is part of life. It is not a punishment from the gods. It is not an unfortunate event. Yes, it's sad to become a person with a disability, but beyond just having the policies, we must make structures available for people when they become persons with disability. It is not disability that kills people when they become disabled. It is the mindset of what the society is going to see them going forward. So beyond policies, we must make available structures. We must embrace a new mindset to see that disability is part of life, just the way death is part of life. And when it happens, we must be structurally ready to accept and incorporate people with disabilities in our society. Lastly, for me, investing in data. I will never overemphasize on the need to have data. Yes. In Nigeria, there is a commission for persons with disabilities. And one day I went there, I said, how come we are not involving those with intellectual disabilities and other forms of psych? And they said, there are not many. This is a government agency. And I asked them, do you have the data? And they said, no, we don't have the data. And I asked, how then are you sure there are not many? So we need to invest in data. If you are here, you are working with an OPD, this is a call for you to invest in data. We need this data to show the UN. We need this data to be able to tell the world that these people exist and they have rights, and also their rights are part of the human rights. And I leave you with this word: disability rights are human rights.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jennifer. Miko, thank you.
Yes, I want to echo the panelists' calls as well for Sudan. I want to say that as an Eritrean, Sudan has had a very close relationship with Eritrea since dating back to independence days, has accepted many Eritrean refugees, and to see what Sudan has been going through has been extremely heartbreaking. So again, I think thinking about approaching this panel, I know that I'm educating many people on Eritrea for the first time, and that was the focus of my presentation to this panel, but I also do want to extend heartfelt solidarity to Sudan as well. So going back to my intro as a storyteller, I think that storytelling is really transformational. And again, I think it's kind of basic. I think especially for Africa, we're always taught our art is so beautiful. People are always interested in our culture and our music. But again, I speak of this as someone who comes from a country where there is complete censorship. And so today, Vanessa Tahaya, who's the founder of One Day Siom, is sitting in the audience. And as someone who grew up anti-government for Eritrea, this is also speaking to the young lady who asked the question from Rwanda about organizing in refugee communities. I did not have anyone to speak to about my sentiments about the government. Similarly with the Eritrean government, a lot of cultural events are tied to the government. And because we got independence in '91, it was a new nation. It's very, when you're in the diaspora and you want to go to a cultural event, you're going to go to the government event, basically. And we're a very small country. And I think also a lot of people gave the government the benefit of the doubt, despite the extreme censorship, people being forcibly disappeared. With African nations, you're thinking, oh, it's a young country, maybe things will change. Who knows what the politicians are thinking? Now, well over 30 years later, we can say definitively that this dictatorship does not have the will of the people at heart. But as someone who grew up anti-government and did not have a platform or a community to speak to, it was really difficult. And I was very blessed to have an aunt who exposed me to diaspora media, again, storytelling, such as asmarino.com or awate.com. These are diaspora outlets that talked openly about the qualms against the government. And I think it's so powerful that Eritreans, despite all of the anguish and unspeakable terror that they go through at the hands of their own government, when they leave Eritrea, they know the power of the media. I do not take for granted this platform right now to be able to speak on my country's history because people from Eritrea do not have this privilege. And I really want to emphasize that. And for anyone who's interested in learning more, this is coming from a diaspora voice. I'm sure someone who came from the country, including people from my delegation here, would be more than happy to speak from their experiences, from the experiences of people that they have interacted with. But storytelling is powerful, and I want to also give concrete examples with One Day Siom, the youth-led organization. It is named after Siom Tahaya, who's one of the journalists who was imprisoned when the government shut down the free press in 2001. So to put a name to the organization, One Day Siom, it started as Vanessa advocating for her uncle, but it really speaks to a whole, not even generations, plural, of Eritreans who are being forcibly disappeared for practicing the wrong religion, for saying any type of, anything that is perceived as critique of the government, for trying to evade mandatory military conscription where they're not even being paid a livable wage. The conditions in the country are just really beyond comprehension and beyond what I'm able to express on this stage today. And I also want to highlight Siham Ali Abdu as well. She's an Eritrean American who was imprisoned at 15 years old. And I don't highlight her to say that her life matters more because she's an American. I highlight her story because One Day Siom, we've highlighted her because she was born in California, just like myself. She was born in 1997, just like myself. The only difference between me and Siham is she went back to Eritrea and she had to pay the price for what her father did. Her father was a politician. She tried to flee the country and she's been imprisoned since she was 15 years old. We have not seen or heard from her since. She and I are now both 27 years old. So this is really the reality of what we're seeing in Eritrea. People across the country are experiencing this, but as we've all been discussing, whatever human rights are being violated, it's that much more severe for the women and girls who are in the country. So I really want to leave that with you all today. I'm really honored, again, to be representing Eritrea and to be able to emphasize the importance of storytelling and freedom of expression. To my fellow migrant communities, such as those from Rwanda, Sudan, the Horn of Africa, we have so much conflict. Also other countries around the continent that are having a lot of people leave the country. Never underestimate the power of your voice and your story.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you. Tando.
Great. So for me, just two things that I'd like to highlight. One which I touched on briefly earlier, but I just want to elaborate a bit further. Today is really about collectively locating where our revolution lies. And I said it lies in three places: family, community, and sense of communal cause. And I want to just unpack that a little bit. When I speak about revolution lying in families, I mean that there has to be an intentional commitment for us to rebuild African families. And part of that means re-establishing the relationship between different members of the family, because that structure and that relationship has been broken. And the internet and capitalism has capitalized on it. So we now spend our time watching content where men intentionally disrespect women to such an extent that marriages are on the decline and people no longer even see a reason to commit to one another. And so it's important for us to understand that colonization has thrived off of dismembering families. And so the revolution lies in doing the exact opposite of what was imposed on us. It also means that we need in families to re-establish the role of women, which goes beyond her womb and her private parts. Women have always been a respectable part of the African family. They have always labored, they've been part of the economy, and that has to be re-established. The respect of women in our communities must be re-established. I want to then go on to communities, our African and Black communities as a whole. What we have been subjected to, folks, for hundreds of years is something called begging bowl syndrome. Ever since colonizers have come here, they created a system of valuing human beings that suggests that the farther you are away from whiteness and male identity and heteronormativity, the farther you are from being a human being. And the farther you are, the more you can be abused and sometimes even killed. And so what we need to do as a society is to stop this thing of waiting for a political system or a government to evaluate what your value is as a human being. What we did in South Africa is that we changed the identity of the people who gave us our value. But we did not spend any time assessing our own value and establishing our value as human beings. That is why we are being abused by people who look just like us. We must be committed to valuing and giving value to ourselves as human beings. Black women, you have been critical to colonization being able to progress, and I'll tell you why. Black women were deliberately told they could not go to school, they could not go outside of the reserves or the Bantu stands, because you, yourself, without doing anything, you represent progress. You represent the sustenance of Black African persons. The more Black women would follow their husbands into the cities, the more irritated colonizers would be, because they knew that Black families would be stabilized by your presence. Therefore, we must be committed to revitalizing our families. Finally, we must look at communal cause and understanding what our role is in that community as an individual. It's to say, what is the community striving to achieve, and who am I and what role am I trying to play? In other words, we must consolidate, which means gathering like this. Then we must delegate who does what, when, and how. And you must all understand, you are not all going to be president. You are not all going to be ministers. You are not all going to be on TV. Play your role and play it well. Then, once you understand your assignment as an individual, you execute. And on that note, since we are consolidated here, I am delegating through you. I am delegating for AFWID and other women leaders here to call a meeting and a gathering of young African women across the African country, where we will discuss our own unique issues as the new vanguard. Because whether we like it or not, the people who are in leadership now won't be there in 10 years or 20 years. It will be us, whether we like it or not. And it's time for us to plan and to prepare and to be ready. And for us young people in this room, don't wait to be given resources and opportunities to do things. Use technology responsibly. Use spaces like this responsibly. We are no longer organizing to survive. Now we organize to thrive.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay.
أنا هكمل وهبني على اللي قالوه زمايلي، مش هحب أكرر حاجة من هم قالوها. إحنا قارة عندنا مشكلات لها علاقة بالاستعمار ولها علاقة بالذكورية ولها علاقة بالرأسمالية والصراعات اللي بتحيطنا من كل مكان، ولكن أنا من خطابات
Just a minute. Our interpreters, are we good? Yes, please. Should we go ahead? Interpreters, should we go ahead?
Okay.
Yes, now we can hear you. Please proceed.
Okay.
Or you can't hear the floor?
Okay. Okay. ولكن أنا حابة أكد على نقطة مهمة جدا حسيتها واستشعرتها من أحاديثنا النهاردة كلنا، وهي فكرة تقاطعية القضايا اللي احنا كلنا مهتمين ومعنيين بيها، أوكي، بصحتنا النفسية وقدرتنا على إن احنا نكمل وإن احنا نقدر ندفع في القضايا اللي احنا مهتمين بيها، خاصة لما أختنا من رواندا اتكلمت عن مشاعرها إن هي من بلد ومن بلد تانية. فأنا فكرت في فكرة المساحات الصديقة للنساء، وإزاي إحنا مفروض إحنا كأدفوكيتور ومناصرين لقضايا النساء نهتم بصحتنا النفسية، لأن إحنا معنيين بقضايا كتير جدا، عندنا هموم كتيرة جدا، ولازم نهتم بالصحة والرفاهة النفسية. تاني حاجة بخصوص أختنا الفاضلة من السودان، إحنا من اليوم الأول يمكن النقاش ما جبناش إن إحنا نتكلم عن قضايا السودان، لكن كل القضايا المسلحة والنزاع والحروب في المنطقة تعنينا ومعنيين بيها جدا، ويعني اشتغلنا عليها زي ما قالت زميلتنا منى من أسوان. من اليوم الأول كنا الفرونت لاين، كنا في الخط الأمامي، بنتكلم، بنعلي الصوت، بنتكلم مع الآليات الدولية، بنعمل حملات مناصرة على قد إمكانياتنا في المستويات المحلية، بنشوف مع إخواتنا في السودان إزاي ممكن نساعد في الدعم النفسي، إزاي ممكن نساعد في وجود مأوى لإخواتنا اللي جايين من السودان. فأبدا أبدا القضايا مش غايبة عننا أو على أجندتنا أو على بالنا، بل بالعكس إحنا معنيين بيها لأقصى درجة. ومش بس السودان، أنا كعربية بتكلم كمان عن غزة وما يحدث في غزة، ومعنيين بكل الصراع اللي بيحيط بينا وبيأثر على قضايانا، والنظم الذكورية اللي بتستغل حيطتنا، أو إن إحنا محيطين بالصراع وبتزيد أكتر في القمع علينا وفي العنف ضدنا والعنف الجنسي في النزاع، وكل القضايا اللي بتخلينا أكتر. تاني أقول إن إحنا بنبقى مضغوطين لدرجة إن إحنا محتاجين مكان زي كده نفرغ عن مشاعرنا. بل بالعكس، أنا مبسوطة جدا إن أنا سمعت مشاعر كتيرة النهاردة، وسمعت خطابات مختلفة ومشاعر نفسية وحاجات لها علاقة بمطالب إن إحنا نحس إن إحنا مسموعين ومتحدين. فأنا بقترح إن إحنا ممكن على هامش المنتدى نطلع مانيفستو نتخيل، لأن التخيل هو نوع من أنواع النجاح الجماعية. إيه اللي إحنا عايزين نشوفه في القارة من حقوق، من حريات، الشكل اللي إحنا عايزين عليه تكون أوضاع النساء في القارة الأفريقية، أوضاع ذوات الاحتياجات الخاصة، أوضاع اللاجئين والمهاجرين. ونكتب، ممكن يبقى في ايميل او يبقى في بلاتفورم نكتب كل حد هو حابب يشوف ايه، ونشوف ازاي بعيدا عن الاليات الدوليه وبعيدا عن بيجين وال12 معيار وبعيدا عن السيستماتيك، احنا ازاي ممكن نتضامن سويا، وازاي ممكن نشتغل على القضايا دي بشكل موحد وبشكل يرفع صوتنا بشكل أكبر ويعبر عن هويتنا، بعيداً عن النظريات الغربية وبعيداً عن نظرية الفيمينيزم النسوية الغربية وبعيداً عن الكلاشيهات والتابوهات اللي بنتحط فيها، ومفروض إن إحنا نفولو إت. فأنا شايفة إن دي فرصة كويسة، تجمع كبير جداً من نساء من كل القارة الأفريقية، إن إحنا نكتب اور صوت، نتخيل شكل العالم النسوي اللي إحنا عايزين. لأن أصلاً النسوية، مقاومة الاستعمار ومقاومة الذكورية والنظم الأبوية، فهي في حد ذاتها قضية نسوية. فإحنا لازم نفكر إحنا عايزين نشوف القارة إزاي، عايزين نراجع بيجين نلغي بيجين خالص ونتخيل بيجين جديد نكتبه احنا، بيجين لمنطقه القاره الافريقيه نكتبه احنا، مش مفروض علينا بيراعي قضايانا وتقاطعاتنا. فنتخيل ونكتب، ويمكن نطلع بوثيقه من المؤتمر ده تعبر عننا وعن ذاتنا وعن احلامنا وعن اللي عايزين نشوفه في القاره. مش هزود اكتر من كده. شكرا.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. The panel has finished. I can't take any more from the floor. But I stand up as we wrap up this afternoon. We can't take any more because the panel has finished. So if I take one, I'll have to take more. And I ask that you be with me and agree with me as we call on to the mother. This has been a very important session, a very important conversation that must continue in the next 3 days. And because it is important, we will call on to the mother. Yelele! Mama yelele! Yelele! Mama yelele! Yelele! Africa yelele! Yelele! Africa yelele! My mother Wahukara tells us that African women will no longer die for Africa. They will live for Africa. And I agree. She says it is enough that African women have died for Africa for many years. Now African women must live for Africa. And so when you see me putting my foot down, amidst the pain we have shared today, I say African women must live for Africa. African women must live for Africa. And so when you see a panel of young people here, so fired up in what they do, trying the much they can amidst everything else, to try and make sense out of it all and change the trajectory for our countries. We support them. We support them. We stand with them. Because my mother Wahukara says the center must hold. And the center is the woman. So my mother says, Mildred, the center must hold. And today I want to tell you, my beloved sisters, we might have forgotten. We did not mention. We might have failed. We might have not done it well, but the center must hold. I'm here to tell you we might be in pain. We might look like we are alone, but the center must hold. We might not have all the answers. We might not even know how to hold in solidarity. But the center must hold. The African woman must hold. The center must hold. The African woman must keep standing. The African woman must keep looking at each other in all our strangeness and differences and say, you're still my sister. Because the center must hold. The center must hold. The problems will not end. They did not start yesterday. They will not end tomorrow. Exactly. But the center must hold. And so I want to tell you as we finish this session, my beloved. Yelele, mama yelele, mama yelele, mama yelele. Yelele, mama yelele, mama yelele, mama yelele. The center must hold. Because the African women are there. Your house does not fall apart and you're there. The center must hold because the mothers are here. The center must hold. The wars are raging, but the center must hold. That African women must still hang on to each other and say, let's find a way. The center must hold. Because if the center does not hold, everything collapses. My beloveds, the center must hold. My dearest, my young leaders, the center must hold. You picked the mantle here from the legends. You said thank you to the legends. The center must hold. It doesn't matter how far or how different or how diverse. The center must hold. I want to thank and appreciate all of you. I am... Okay, could you just give her the microphone because she really needs to say something? Yes, please, if you don't mind, the team, thank you. Please make it short because we are now just trying to wrap up. Thank you. Just one, not two, just one. Okay? Here, just one, please, if I may. Remember, I told you we are 1,000. If we all talk, we will live here next year in July. Okay, let's go.
Buenas tardes. Hablo en nombre de las mujeres saharauis.
Please wait. Interpreters, are we good?
Spanish.
Spanish?
Yes.
She's speaking in Spanish. Are we good?
Yes, I speak in Spanish.
Okay.
I have a translator.
Yeah.
Hablo de las mujeres saharauis. Somos mujeres africanas. Y confirmando lo que estaba diciendo mi hermana, mi amiga, las mujeres africanas no vamos a morir. Porque nosotras, las mujeres saharauis, una de las experiencias de las mujeres africanas, cuando no hemos muerto porque hemos sido bombardeadas con napalm y fósforo blanco. Hemos tenido que ser desplazadas. Hemos nacido a raíz de todas las epidemias. Aquí hay 2 chicas de las que tienen cierta discapacidad precisamente debido a las atrocidades que recibieron las madres en estado de gestación. Seguimos refugiadas, pero hemos convertido ese refugio en un estado libre, independiente, en que toda mujer goza de la dignidad humana y prevalece su valor por encima porque tiene derecho a la educación. De la delegación somos 15, 14 son graduadas de estudios a través de ayudas de otros países. Tienen derecho a la salud, tienen derecho a la participación. 43% del Parlamento son mujeres. Cumplimos con la agenda africana, más del 35% en la gestión. Los estados locales, los estados de base, al 100% las gestoras son mujeres saharauis. Este es un ejemplo de las mujeres africanas. Pero este es un espacio para que seamos hermanas, para que nos apoyamos mutuamente, para que nos desligamos, nos desmarcamos de lo que hacen los dictadores, de lo que hacen la imposición de los estados, que nos exterminan, que nos hacen desaparecer. Y por lo tanto, el secreto está en el diálogo, en escucharnos mutuamente y ver los argumentos, ver lo que realmente y las razones que esgrimimos para poder coexistir, porque la coexistencia es el diálogo desde el supuesto de la religión, desde el supuesto del valor del derecho humano, desde el valor de lo que garantizan todas las convenciones.
May I respectfully cut you short?
Derecho de los
Thank
pueblos,
you, my sister.
Derecho de las mujeres.
Thank you, my sister. Thank you, my sister. Thank you, and I want to repeat to the women of Saharaui that AFWID never forgets you, and that's why AFWID must see you here. So if there's anything that you need to see to understand that AFWID never forgets, this is because we are all here. So I want to thank you very much, beloved. I want to appreciate this magnificent panel, please. A big clap for this magnificent panel. When we see the young people fired up to take up the mantle and do the work, then we are grateful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we want to wrap up the day, but with a report, I think, from the Secretariat. And we will take it up from there. And for me, Mildred, I say, a luta continua. A luta continua. A luta continua. A luta continua. Thank you.
Please remind the women, if you haven't had a chance to speak, you are having your regional meetings on Thursday. You are reporting back to the panel on Friday.
Hello, may I remind you, women, especially the comments we want to give, you're going to have your regional meetings tomorrow on Thursday, and you will report back to your panels on Friday here. So there's going to be more room from your regional meetings to share all these things. All right? Then we have more time there in the regional meetings. Thank you so much. Thank you. Saida, do we have an announcement maybe? Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay, you're using the podium? Oh, Jennifer, you are amazing. Keep doing that. Thank you. Keep doing that. Can I hug you? Wait a minute. Keep doing that. Don't stop. Keep doing it. Mika, huge, free, caring.
My job is boring. Afternoon, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Have you got your scarf? That's your chain of solidarity. When you see a woman after